So what did I want to say? Yes. So once you've done the survey, that's really, really important. But then the second thing, and that's the evidence for the court, I'm saying that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit where you don't need fancy pants data analysis that you might need for, trying to prove classified yet deadly mind control military weapons. You don't have to have fancy data analysis to maybe explain to a judge that a lot of people experience break-ins and Stasi-style harassment by a bunch of idiots from the intelligence agencies, because we've seen it before. We've seen it before with the Stasi, starting in the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Then in the 90s, they went underground. The Stasi was supposedly dissolved, right? But we know, I think, by now what they've been doing in the 90s. But all the way up until the 80s, stalking, harassment, and psychological warfare were the staple in East Germany, okay? And meanwhile, COINTELPRO in the US. So if you say to a judge that you're being now, or if many people come forward and say that we're being harassed by Stasi or COINTELPRO style harassment by the intelligence agencies, it really can't come as a surprise to a judge, okay? If you can then prove it, because we are all reporting the same sort of organizational structure, the same sort of features, of this harassment, independently of each other, without having ever met each other. And, the little antics that the intelligence agencies and their goons get up to, when they appear strikingly similar, a judge can figure out that, oh, that's a program, and also the evidence should be enough. So, okay, so that's the plan, okay? That is the plan, and that's what I'm working on. I'm also working on putting this joint investigation team together, pulling it together, and especially pulling some, kind of like putting some evidence and paperwork together that you can download, take it to family, friends, police officers, and many other people and say, look, it's official now. You can shut the F up about it. Here it is. So, yes, this is what I'm working on, but I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm also being shot at. One of the things that Swiss intelligence run by Markus Seiler here in Zurich do with me is, and I think a lot of victims have experienced the same, the intelligence agencies seem to cluster in homes near to you. They seem to rent flats or, go and use the accommodation or the house or the home or the flat of corrupted neighbors, and just congregate there and shoot at you and train each other up in the use of these directed energy weapons, and also place down what I suspect are computer-steered weapons. And I think we all have tracking chips, or probably not just one, but several in our bodies that pretty much map out the grid on our bodies. And I think that this is why our chips are emitting, so that these weapons can pick up the emissions, hone in on us, and then pretty much measure out where they have to shoot us in the head, for example. So I've experienced that, as soon as I leave my study, which is this metal all around, to be slightly safer. It's very hard to be super safe, but it's slightly safer than when I leave my study. But as soon as I leave the study now, I get really brutal shots on the head, and it just goes bam, and that's not a sniper sitting there literally for 20 hours just waiting for the one moment I come through the door, although I'm pretty sure the Navy SEALs would be willing to do that. But it's not, it's a computer. And that's why it literally, I go through the door and it's like, bam, because the computer just monitors it. And as soon as my chip is detected, poof, it does the calculation with lightning speed, and it shoots me in the head. And I have to say, the headshots I receive, I can hear the tissue in my head pop as the microwave energy is punched in. I can literally feel the shot bounce off my skull, and then I can feel a heat wave that's kind of like funnily on my face, and then suddenly appears somewhere else on my skull. So what this is microwave energy being shot into my head, making probably a little pop in the tissue as it gets damaged, and then the shockwave travels out with the heat, and then you can feel it. So that is being in a modern concentration camp where the intelligence agencies are again a bunch of fucking Nazis, sadly, in the 21st century. Oh yes, one final thing, because there's a lot of disinformation around that. you know, this information about the perpetrators of who could this possibly be? I mean, the countless number of times when I get asked, like, how the hell do you know it's the intelligence agencies? I mean, the several ways you can know that it's the intelligence agencies. Yes, law enforcement is involved as well, but certainly the intelligence agencies. And that is, number one, only the intelligence agencies have access to the HUMINTEL, the human intelligence, the surveillance networks. The gangstalkers, they are integrated into the surveillance networks, okay? That's why, if you look carefully, you can see them use hand signs, certain patterns with which they coordinate themselves, and other signs, you know, movements, yada, 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 a certain pattern with which they swarm. That's kind of typically uniform across a country, so, and even between countries. So, number one, that's the professional surveillance network trained up, controlled by the intelligence agencies. Only the intelligence agencies have simultaneously also access to these weapons. Only they can combine the surveillance networks with the use of the weapons in a really smoothly integrated way. Okay? That's end of story. It's only they who can pull it off. Like a police force, yes, the police forces have been militarized. And yes, police forces sometimes run informants. But police forces typically do not run the national surveillance networks. That's an intel job, okay? So even though police officers are integrated and very tightly connected, it is the intelligence agencies that are at the top. You know, they control both. They control all three, the police, the military weapons, and the stalking and surveillance networks, okay? And also, intelligence agencies have been infiltrating and had a task to infiltrate absolutely everything. Governments, also universities, you know, have those links with the scientists, and that grows into a symbiotic relationship where after a while scientists can say to his intel buddy, oh, can't you just do these covert experiments for me? And then I get lots of money from pharma, big pharma, or the weapons industry, and then you get kickbacks, and then, you know, it's a symbiotic relationship. But at the heart of it all are the intelligence agencies, okay? So that's number one. That's why they, the culprits, at the top. Police officers too, scientists at universities too, but at the very top, intel agencies. Okay. Then there's a second reason why you can blame the intelligence agencies and prove that the police is totally corrupt. And many other people, doctors as well, and psychiatrists. But the way to prove that it's the intelligence agencies who are ultimately the culprits is very simple. This is terrorism. Who's tasked with fighting terrorism? The intelligence agencies. Who couldn't give the last fuck about this problem of rampant terrorism? It's the intelligence agencies. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that there's actual civilians complaining on YouTube and on Twitter about being shot to pieces with military weaponry, and none of the intelligence agencies seem to give a flying fuck? I mean, I can find intelligence on this weapon system being used against the people of the UK, the people of the US, the people of Germany, and here, the people of Switzerland. I'm pretty sure that an intelligence agency can also use Google and Twitter as well as I can. So how the F come that they are not on the case? How the hell come that they haven't solved the problem by last Wednesday? Well, it's very simple. If they don't solve the problem, it's because they are the problem. Okay? It's that simple. It's like, hey, we've got evidence for large-scale terrorism. That's your job, Intel. So, what are you doing about it? If the answer is jack shit, then probably they're involved. Probably they are running it. That's why you see they can't stop it, because they're running it. They would have to stop themselves, which they could have done had they wanted a long time ago. So if they don't wanna. See, it's literally that freaking simple. If your country has a statutory duty for your intelligence agencies to fight terrorism, and you've got this large-scale terrorism of microwave attacks, electromagnetic weapons, remote brain fuck technology being used on your civilian population, and the intelligence agencies are not doing anything about it, then the head of Intel is guilty. Yes, they are running it. They must be running it. Okay, there's no other way. So it's just by simple, deduction and simple logical thought that you can figure out that all heads of European intelligence are guilty of Nazi war crimes. They are guilty of crimes against humanity. And tell you what, the system just didn't pop into existence, last Tuesday. This was built up carefully. So also retired heads of Intel are guilty of crimes against humanity. And as it happens, crimes against humanity do not have a limitation period. And therefore it follows that a lot of Intel bollocks are on the line. Yes, a lot. So, that's a lot of testicles to put crosshairs on. That's the good news. So it's not very hard to find out who is doing it. What's really hard is how to make these demented Nazi fucktards actually stop. Because last time it took a world war, and even that was staged, So how do you stop these people when it's not staged? I mean, that's what we're working on. So what I'm working on is stopping them through court cases and just jailing the fuckers eventually before I die. But they are killing me. So I'll die. And with people like me dying, there will be fewer and fewer people left who actually think, let's just take the civil society route of civilized court cases. And what these guys don't realize is that more and more people are left who say, they're just psychopaths. I don't think you can stop psychopaths by asking them nicely. You just have to shoot them in the fucking head. So that's the downside of killing people like me. Anyway, but that's the big story, okay? And yes, there are precedents for heads of Intel being executed. China just executed a head of Intel. Looks like they also had enough of the bullshit. That's what it looks like to me. So anyway, I think here in Europe, we should really somehow get in a civilized fashion to court cases and shut this stuff down. Should we not be able to? Well, I think the only last resort is obvious to everybody. Anyway, so that's enough for me. I am still being shot at. Markus Seiler, who, by deductive reasoning, must be a psychopathic Nazi running psychopathic Nazi serial killers, is now amusing himself and his people by actually putting microwave emitters, computer steered, and shooting into a defenseless woman's head as she's leaving her study to go to the bathroom. And I should also mention that at night, I had to take a desk and put it on my bed to have more breathing space. You maybe know I used to have this triangle to try to be as close to shielding as possible. Now I'm sleeping on the desk on my bed, and I'm shielding in a square fashion to somehow have more breathing air at night. But I'm literally going to bed every night listening to the patter that sounds like rain. But it's actually shots, microwave, machine gun shots bouncing off the shielding off my bed. Isn't that nice? If you think these fucking Nazis should be and can be brought to their senses, I've included the emails of the 3 men who are totally, ultimately responsible for the attacks on me. One of them is Andrew Parker, head of MI5. He's responsible for the attacks on me in the UK. They started in the UK. And he's also responsible for my human trafficking to German Intel and then to Swiss Intel. Okay? Now, the head of German Intel, Dr. Bruno Karl, is responsible for the mutilation attacks on me in Germany. And the head of Swiss Intel, Markus Seiler, is what must be a total Nazi, responsible for the mutilation attacks on me here in Zurich, Switzerland, non-stop since January 2016. Every time I travel to Germany, I'm mutilated by German intelligence. When I travel to the UK, by UK intelligence, and also when I travel to other European countries, I'm also mutilated. I was mutilated in Spain, in Italy, in Netherlands, and Belgium. And what I can see, I am handed, to the local surveillance network of that particular country when I cross the lines, which means that I'm again the problem of the head of Intel in that country. Yes. So this means I'm I've got personal evidence that I think all or pretty much most European heads of Intel are guilty of Nazi crimes. So they all need to be put in the dock together. And I think from what we've heard from from the news about the global satanic pedophile networks, which the intelligence agencies also seem to be amazingly disinterested in, which again implies that they must have been running them or are running them. Well, so looking at the evidence that's now bubbling up in the news and reports from all around the world, well, it seems likely that the heads of intel might also have been involved together in that sort of thing. And I think from what I have read about whistleblowers in the intel community, I think there seem to be regular reaffirmation rituals for intelligence agents, senior intelligence agents, and politicians, and other people, judges, and so on, with the theme of kitty fucking. So to make a long story short, I think it's statistically very probable, given the news that we have from credible sources, that it could be very likely the case that the heads of intel have been fucking children together. Yes, and there's nothing that fosters male bonding, it seems like, putting your dick into the same kid, you know, or raping and mutilating the same kid, sadly. But I think, guys, this is, I think, the scale we're talking about. It seems to me, based on the information out there. So, should that be the case, first of all, we shouldn't be surprised why these people are so terminally fucked in the head. It kind of, you know, goes without saying. That's what they have been trained to become, and that's what they have been selected to be. But also, if you find it really distasteful that we have adult people, you know, mutilating young children and mutilating defenseless women and having one big international love-in, you know, among themselves, if you find that really distasteful, perhaps you could descend down on these heads of intel whose email is included below, you know, who very likely have some other nefarious things that bonds them, you know, like brotherhood together, you know. I mean, yes, they are probably all Freemasons. I think that's highly likely, but it's more than that. It's not just Freemasonry isn't the worst news about them, I think. I think they're bonded by many other ways as well.